Hey everyone, hopefully you're having a good day. My name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. Today we're going to do our daily technical analysis update of commodities, work our way through the dollar, yields, precious metals, and commodities ETFs that I follow. I'm going to interject my financial opinions as we go. If you need help with anything, check out finding-value.com. That's where I go over individual companies and how to play these sectors. I do lots of training on there. And then we also have our own Discord that we can go back and forth real time. And I'm usually on that in the mornings. So that's what we've got going on. We've got a 7 a.m. question answer session coming up tomorrow at Saturday. That's Mountain Time. So let's dive in here. Let's take a look and see what's going on with the markets. We've got the dollar showing some weakness today along with yields. If yields continue lower, which it looks like they potentially could, we could see the dollar maybe slowly drift lower here. What does that mean? It means that we might get a boost with the dollar getting weaker, pushing our commodity stuff higher and precious metals. So that's looking good from the dollar standpoint and a potential move higher. The 2-year yield dropping. Pretty big drop today, down 1.8%. Again, when yields drop, that's generally when gold kicks it into gear, especially if we see the short end of the curve drop more than the long end of the curve. So that's even more of a boost. So we're seeing yields drop here on the 2-year. Yields are dropping on the 10-year. Looks like we're starting to maybe establish a trend reversal where this was going up. We sat there and maybe we get some movement lower here. Maybe the Federal Reserve is starting to decide which direction they're going to go. And maybe that information is leaking to the big banks, and the banks are positioning for that potentially. TYX 30-year yield also looks like it wants to go lower, which is a good thing. Gold's been sitting there waiting for this type of market condition to come. We've got the TYX TNX ratio moving up, which is favorable for gold to go higher. Now, if we get lower rates and this starts to move upward like this, we could see gold, silver really take off here because we're at a very low level. This is generally a good time to be looking at those particular metals down here. And there's a strong correlation of when the ratio uninverts and gold going up. TLT bond pricing is going up a little bit, and that looks like it wants to continue. That is a bullish engulfing here. And yields coming back down. It looks to me that bond prices are going up and yields are coming back down for a period of time in the short term. And then the US 2-year, 10-year, we are slightly uninverted a little bit on the 2 and 10. Not as much as the long end of the curve, which I showed the 30 and 10. Gold ripping it today. Big move. It loves that market condition of yields coming back down. It loves it. And if I were just to throw a trend line here, we've definitely broken to the upside. We could see a little bit of selling pressure the next few days, and then maybe a return. It depends what yields do and how that yield curve either inverts or uninverts. But this looks really promising, really strong for gold. Looks fantastic. Silver also moving on up. This one looked good from the get-go, though. We had a trend line break, a retest. That's where I said that would be a good time to be looking at physical silver there. And here we are rolling our way on up. Looks really good. And hopefully, though, the interest rates and dollar continue lower. And I think this will continue to move higher if that does. We've got platinum also looking like it's trying to put in a bottom here. That looks pretty strong in my opinion. We can easily see this roll on up. Think of it as kind of a squeeze into the corner here. We've got palladium also going up $26. This looks like it's trying to bottom. Give it some time. I think it'll eventually work its way on up when the conditions are right. XAU to gold ratio, the gold and silver mining companies getting a good bounce today, up 1.16% in relationship to gold itself. Is this a broken downtrend? It's close. I'm not going to put it in there, but we could be trying to find a bottom here. We are up against a longer term support line going across here that I threw in there. But let's see. I want to see some more positive developments working its way on up for this ratio before I get too excited. The CRB index is up today. I do think that this will roll on higher with oil. Oil is going to be the main driver of it. But this looks really good, and this could be the beginning of a very big move. CRB to S&P basically flat today, where the S&P also went up about as much as oil, but I still think the CRB index, this looks like a good setup where it could start to outperform the S&P 500. But again, if yields go lower, you could see stocks go up at the same time for a period of time. So GDX was a good update today. Let's see if it can keep going. Let's see if we can keep driving that momentum to the upside and if gold and rates. But this looks really promising on the weekly. It's a bullish engulfing, and that generally works its way higher. For those early aggressive investors, now's the time to be, I think, getting picky with maybe a couple of companies. GDXJ's got the same type of setup, nice big bullish engulfing. I think we're going higher. This is on the weekly. It looks pretty good today. And then SILJ also on the weekly, nice big bullish engulfing. It looks like we're going to go higher. So that's good. We're starting to see at least a potential turn here for GDX, GDXJ, and SILJ. Will this guarantee outperformance of the gold and silver mining companies in relationship to gold itself? Not necessarily, but it's a good start. And I'd like to see the miners really start to kick it into gear here if this is a bottom. Crude oil up 1.9% today. Looking pretty good. A little bit of a wick at the top. We're sitting on top of this shoulder, and we're sitting right on top. Let's see if we can get moving next week to the upside. The projected move, if I were to take a projected move, it's probably going to be somewhere around here. Projected upwards, $88 or so is what I get for a projected move of this small head and shoulders. And that might trigger a larger move if we get up there because we're starting to clear a bunch of resistance. So again, we'll see if that snowballs into a larger move in oil. TTF gas up 3.2%. It is very low in relationship to where we were back here. But we'll see if we can try putting in a bottom here. It's going to take some time. And then natural gas in America, it still looks good to go higher. This isn't very bearish setup. It's still good, looks good to go higher, but we do have warm weather. I mean, it's warm weather and it's going to take some time, I think. Our boy XOP, yeah, you know me, popping higher. Now, is this going to be sustaining? It depends what oil does. Are we going to get a little bit of a pullback before heading higher? Don't know. A little bit of a squeeze up and a little pop higher. But that's where we're at with oil, and we're right underneath this neckline. We're trying to break above it. Let's watch it over the next few trading sessions. OIH up 2.7% roughly, breaking the downtrend line. We saw that. I mean, that's clear. And I was like, let's just wait for oil to break, and then oil broke up, and OIH is going with it. So I do think that we've got more upside potential. A lot of the earnings in the energy service sector are looking pretty good for a lot of the companies. Companies are starting to do share buybacks and all that other stuff on some of the bigger companies. So could be moving on up. Sprott Physical Uranium Trust. It doesn't look too bad. We've got we're up about 2.5%. We have a strong move lower. This was our kind of could be a potential move higher. We have an up day today with the candlestick that we just got. Is this going to be a bottom? Well, I got to see follow through, guys. I mean, this could very well be a continuation pattern to the downside too. So I don't want to get too excited yet. Don't want to, I'm in this stuff. I'm just riding it. But for a short-term addition, I'd probably just wait because we did break downward a pretty substantial trend line. So I'm going to wait and see. URA, I know we've got a bullish engulfing that very well could signal a bottom there. We've got lots of downside momentum. Is it a pattern that's doing this? Are we going to bottom out? That this is what's really difficult when you sell out of something. When do you re-enter? Do you wait? Do you wait and try to time it down? We've got a bullish engulfing here on the daily. Does that mean it's going to go up? That's basically a broken down trend line. If I were to kind of zoom out a little bit, let me zoom out a little bit more there. So basically what you get is a broken down trend line. See that broken down trend line? And then it'll probably come down and do a retest and then work its way on up. That is the hardest thing to like nail right in the short term. Short term market movements are always tough and difficult to nail. So what I do is I just hold on to it. I don't really try to trade the short term. Hey, look, hopefully that's not a Boeing uh, plane with a door falling off or something, but this still looks great to go up, but we could see a little bit of a pullback before it goes on up. Again, um, we've got a broken downtrend. It is a bullish engulfing, which could end up going on up. Uranium also has a pretty bullish candlestick today. We have momentum coming down. Could this be kind of like a double bottom where we reverse it on up? It very well could be. And we've got a bullish engulfing candlestick today on URNM. And URNJ also has a pretty bullish candlestick today. We are underneath a little bit of resistance. Could this be a continuation pattern to the downside? You could look at this from both perspectives. So let's find out and wait. Um, Again, I'm not trading this. I'm not a trader playing this long term. Not going to jack around. I lost money last time I tried to jack around. I didn't know what I was doing back then, but still, I don't want to jack around. I just want to capture this big move. But we could still see a little bit of short-term selling pressure. It's still in the cards. It is possible. But it does look good for a potential try to move on higher here. So we'll see who wins here versus, buyers versus sellers. Pan up a little bit, likes those declining interest rates. That's moving on up. That's been pretty solid declining interest rate winner for Invesco. Solar, we're up against resistance on copper. Kind of interesting here. We're right up against resistance. We have a little bit stronger selling pressure and not as much of more of a muted move higher. This still could duke to the downside in the short term. COPX moving on up. It's looking okay. We're kind of up against a little bit of resistance right where we're at. We've got lithium up a little bit. That's looking good. It likes the lower yields. So does REMX. Whenever we get yields going down, this is like a gold and silver trade. REMX is very similar to gold and silver. They move together. Whenever those rates go down, it seems like rare earths just rip it. So that looks good. It's still very cheap. Lithium's also that same type of movement. S&P 500 ripping higher today. Could this accelerate to the upside? It could. It looks very strong. And NASDAQ also looking very strong. Let's see if we can break out of these patterns that we've got moving on up here into the corners here. So we'll see if we can break it. Let me extend it on out, guys, for everyone else. There we go. KRE, it is down 1.1%. Surprisingly weird. Maybe this is why they maybe will do liquidity or something. I don't know, or lowering rates, but it's just holding on sideways for the KRE banking. Usually that goes up with the home builders, but right now it's kind of stuck sideways. Emerging markets, it likes the weaker dollar, weaker interest rates, and I think this will move on up if we continue to get lower rates and lower dollar. We've got XHB also moving higher. This thing is really starting to accelerate. As rates come back down, there are going to be a lot more buyers because of the affordability of the homes. So if rates continue lower, I do think that the home builders will continue on up. We're up 0.26. It's just moving sideways. It looks like it's trying to base out here and eventually work its way on up. Some of these are good with lowering interest rates, and others are good with increasing interest rates in the agribusiness ETF, depending on where you're looking. Iron ore moving on up today, about 1.1%. Looks like it's trying to put a bottom in here. We'll see if it can do that. We had this big surge lower. That is a few days ago. Nickel moving on up, and I do think this is going to continue on higher. This looks like a bottom to me, and it looks like we've got a slow grind starting to move to the upside. Aluminum's also grinding higher, likes those at lower interest rates, and we've broken to the upside of this little squeezing pattern, so we'll see where that goes, which I think will go higher. Baltic Dry Index up another 3.44%. That looks fantastic to go higher. And that the Red Sea disruptions. We've got Newcastle coal up almost 3%. That looks like it's bottoming out and it's going to work its way on up. So that looks fantastic as well. Probably a bunch of coal opportunities to look at. Bitcoin also working its way on up still, even with this kind of the two wicks at the top that generally indicates that it wants to turn lower. We still went up. But again, I wouldn't be too quick to jump on this train. We very well could end up going lower. Look for the next couple of candlesticks and what they look like. Ethereum also moving on up. And again, let's look to see what the next candlesticks are. Is it going to be a bearish engulfing? Do we still have selling pressure up here? Well, we'll wait and find out. And then SMCI looking like it's moving up a little bit. Still looks pretty crappy, in my opinion. That doesn't look like it's ready to just rip to the upside. NVIDIA looks pretty good here. That is still ripping to the upside. Probably gained, what is that? We're at 2.06 trillion market cap. So I'm sure that's bigger than a lot of countries' GDPs. But that's what I've got for today, guys. Thumb up for the content. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the website if you feel like you need a little bit more help or you want to learn about how I approach the markets. I do technical analysis. This is not the only thing that I rely on. I consider myself a hybrid investor. I look at the fundamentals of the sector, the supply demand imbalances and stuff like that. I look at the companies. I want to look at their assets. What am I paying? What's the value of it? Then I tie it to the technicals as well. And if everything kind of aligns, we have a cheap company in a great sector with deficits coming out ahead of us. It's very cheap at this current moment. The sector, the company's cheap. It's cheap to the reserves it's got, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then I usually take a position if everything looks good. But that's what I've got for today. We'll catch you next time. This is Finding Value.